The sound that's hardest to ignore on a cold night isn't the wind, it's the tap, tap, tap of a wedding ring on a glass window. I'd hear it every shift, right around 8 p.m., when the dinner rush was in full swing. I'm Sarah, and for the past 6 months, I've been a waitress at Le Ciel, which means the sky in French. It's the kind of place where the wine glasses are thinner than paper, and the plates are so big the food looks tiny. It's expensive, it's exclusive, and it has a huge, floor-to-ceiling window looking out onto the street. That's where he stood. Not begging, not holding a sign, just watching. He was an older black man. His coat was a faded army green, way too thin for the biting winter. His beard was grey and neat, and his eyes. That's what got me. They weren't desperate or crazy. They were just tired. He'd stand there and watch families laugh, watch businessmen close deals, and then he'd lift his left hand and tap his simple gold wedding ring on the glass, just once, like a quiet hello to a world that had locked him out. Most of the staff ignored him. The customers, wrapped in cashmere and smelling like expensive perfume, would ask to have the blinds lowered. But I'd watch him. He'd look at the menu posted by the door, and sometimes he'd nod, like he approved of the coq au vin. It was strange. Have you ever seen someone who is so clearly invisible to everyone else, but to you, they're the only person in the room? That's what he was like. Tonight was different. Tonight, the wind was mean. It didn't just blow, it screamed. I saw him shiver, a deep, bone-rattling shake. He looked at the door, then at his hands, then back at the door. He was fighting a battle with himself. Pride versus survival. Survival won. The heavy oak door opened just a crack, and he slipped inside. The wave of warm air and the smell of roasting garlic and thyme must have been overwhelming. He didn't walk toward the tables. He just stood on the welcome mat, dripping melted snow onto the marble, his hands clasped behind his back, trying to be as small as possible. He just wanted a minute, just 60 seconds out of the cold. The restaurant didn't stop. The music played, the forks clinked. For a second, I thought he'd made it. Then Julien saw him. Julien is, well, he's the manager. He's the kind of man who wears a suit so tight it looks like it's angry at him. He thinks Le Ciel isn't just a restaurant, it's his personal kingdom. He didn't walk over, he marched. Can I help you? Julien's voice wasn't a question, it was a weapon. The older man looked up, his eyes meeting Julien's. I was just getting warm, sir. I'll be gone in a moment. His voice was deep and smooth. Surprising. It didn't match the coat. No, you'll be gone now, Julien hissed, getting closer. This is a private establishment, not a city shelter. You are disturbing our guests. A few tables had turned to look. The man's face flushed with shame. I am disturbing no one. I am standing on the mat. You are scaring our guests, Julien snapped. He pointed to a wealthy-looking couple at table 3, who were staring with open disgust. These people are paying hundreds of dollars for a meal, and they don't want to look at that. That's when I started moving. Julien, I said, walking up with my tray. It's okay. I can get him a container of soup to go. From the staff meal. Julien turned his eyes on me, and they were cold. You will do no such thing, Sarah. You will go back to table 7. And you, he said, turning back to the man, will get out. Now. Please, the man whispered. Just 1 minute. It's so cold. I am not asking. I am telling. Leave, or I will call the police and have you removed for trespassing. The man looked past Julien, his eyes landing on the kitchen door, then at the bar, then at the paintings on the wall. He looked, I don't know. Nostalgic? Then his shoulders slumped. He nodded once. Very well. He turned to leave, but his shoes were wet. The marble was slick. He stumbled, catching his balance on the hostess stand. Julien saw this as an act of aggression. Don't you touch that! Julien shouted. And he did it. He put his hands on the man. He grabbed the shoulder of that thin green coat and shoved him. Hard. It was all over in a second. The man stumbled backward, out the door, and fell hard onto the freezing pavement. The door clicked shut, locking the cold back out. Julien brushed off his suit jacket, his face triumphant. He turned to the dining room. My apologies for the disturbance, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is under control. He smoothed his tie and walked back to his podium. I was frozen. I just watched a man get assaulted for being cold. And the worst part? The people at table 3? They started clapping. Softly, but they were clapping. What would you have done? It's easy to say you'd quit, you'd scream, you'd fight. But my rent was due. My mum is sick. My job, this job was all I had. I felt sick to my stomach. I looked out the window. He was still on the ground, pushing himself up slowly. He looked at his hands, which were scraped and bleeding. Then he just walked away, disappearing into the snow. But he'd left something. When he fell, something small and yellow had fluttered out of his coat pocket. It was lying on the welcome mat. I wanted to get it, but Julien was watching me. Table 7, Sarah. Now. I nodded, my eyes burning. Yes, Julien. But I couldn't stop thinking about that little piece of paper. And I couldn't shake the feeling that Julien hadn't just thrown out a homeless man. He'd thrown out something more. The restaurant was buzzing again in 5 minutes. The incident was forgotten. But I couldn't forget. I kept looking at that yellow card, just lying there on the mat. I had to wait. I bided my time for almost an hour, refilling water, taking dessert orders, smiling until my face hurt. Finally, Julien went to the back office to take a phone call. This was my chance. I walked quickly to the front, bent down as if tying my shoe, and snatched the card. I shoved it into my apron pocket without even looking at it. My heart was pounding. It felt like I'd just stolen something. I ran into the staff bathroom, locked the door, and pulled it out. My hands were shaking. It wasn't a piece of trash. It was a recipe card. Old, folded, and stained with. God, was that wine and butter? The edges were soft, like it had been held thousands of times. The handwriting was elegant, faded blue ink. At the top it said, Isabella's Sunrise Soufflé. I stopped breathing. I knew that name. Isabella's Sunrise Soufflé wasn't just a dessert. It was our dessert. It was the $75 signature dish that had earned Le Ciel 2 Michelin stars. It was the secret recipe of our owner, the legendary Isabella Rossi. And at the bottom of the card, in the same faded ink, was a signature. It wasn't Isabella. It just said, For my Bella, keep reaching for the sky. M. M. Who was M? And why did this homeless man have the recipe? The one Isabella Rossi supposedly invented and kept locked in a safe. The bathroom door handle jiggled. Sarah? Are you okay in there? It was another waitress. Fine, I called out, my voice high. Just be out in a second. I folded the card carefully and put it back in my pocket. My mind was racing. What did this mean? Was he an old employee? An ex-lover? A thief? No. Thieves don't keep recipe cards in their pockets for years until they fade. This was a memory. This was a gift. I knew, in that moment, that this went deeper than a cold man needing shelter. I walked out of the bathroom, right past Julien, who was now yelling at a busboy. I didn't care. I had to wait until the end of the night. The owner, Miss Rossi, almost never came in on Tuesdays. But this was bigger than my job. As I was clocking out, Julien stopped me. You were distracted tonight, Sarah. Don't let it happen again. And don't ever try to undermine me in front of the guests again. That soup idea was pathetic. We are not a charity. I just looked at him. I didn't say, okay. I didn't say, sorry. I just stared. And for the first time, I think I scared him a little. Good night, Julien, I said. I went home, but I didn't sleep. I just sat at my tiny kitchen table, staring at that yellow card. Isabella's Sunrise Soufflé. Keep reaching for the sky. Le Ciel. For my Bella. M. It all started to click, and the picture it was painting was terrifying. The next day, I went in 2 hours before my shift. I'd called ahead and found out Miss Rossi was in for a morning meeting with the wine vendors. I was risking everything. For all I knew, I'd be fired for having this. Maybe I would be accused of stealing it. Have you ever had a moment where your gut is screaming so loud you can't hear your brain? My brain said, go to work, keep your head down, forget it. But my gut said, this is wrong. This is all wrong. I found her in her office. Isabella Rossi wasn't like Julien. She was in her late 40s, elegant, with kind eyes but a spine made of steel. She was famous in the culinary world, a woman who had built an empire from nothing. Sarah? She said, looking up from her laptop. You're early. Is everything okay? I closed the office door. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely get the card out of my pocket. Miss Rossi, something happened last night. A man came in. He was homeless and cold. Julian threw him out. He pushed him. Isabella's face tightened. He pushed him? Julian physically removed a man? Yes, ma'am. He fell. And this fell out of his pocket. I held out the yellow card. The moment she saw it, all the color drained from her face. She didn't take it. She just stared at it, her hand flying to her mouth. Where did you get this? She whispered. It fell from his coat, ma'am. Julian picked it up and threw it in the trash by the door. I got it after he left. She slowly reached out and took the card, her fingers tracing the faded blue ink. I saw tears well up in her eyes. She turned it over, looking at the signature. M, she breathed. She sank into her chair, looking at the card like it was a ghost. I knew it was your recipe for the soufflé, ma'am, I said quietly. I didn't know what it meant. What did he look like? She asked, her voice urgent. Older, I said. Black, a grey beard. He wore a green army coat, and he had a wedding ring, a plain gold one. He kept tapping it on the window. Isabella let out a sound, a half sob, half gasp. Oh my God. No, it couldn't be. He's been gone for a decade. Who? Ma'am? She looked up at me, and her eyes were filled with a pain I had never seen. Marcus Thorne. He wasn't just a chef, Sarah. He was my mentor. He was my partner. He's the M. My blood went cold. Your partner? He gave me everything, she said, clutching the card to her chest. He taught me how to cook. He found me when I was 19, peeling onions in a diner. He saw something in me. This restaurant. This was his dream. He financed it. He designed the kitchen. Le ciel. The sky. That was his motto. Keep reaching for the sky, Bella. But what happened? I whispered. His wife and daughter. They were killed. A drunk driver. 11 years ago. He broke. He lost his mind. His heart. One day, he just vanished. He sold his shares in the company, left me this restaurant, and walked away. I haven't seen him in 10 years. I thought he was dead. We both sat in silence, the truth of it hanging in the air. The man Julian had pushed into the snow was the founder, the owner, the very soul of Le Ciel. We have to find him, Isabella said, jumping to her feet. Where is Julian? He's in the main dining room, I think. Isabella walked out of that office like a storm. I'd never seen her angry. Now, she was terrifying. Julian was arranging wine glasses, humming to himself. Miss Rossi, good morning. Wonderful day. Julian, she said. Her voice was so quiet. It was louder than a shout. He stopped, sensing the change. Yes, ma'am? The man you threw out last night. The homeless man. Julian's fake smile returned. Yes, a minor disturbance. I handled it swiftly. No harm done. No harm done? Isabella's voice cracked. She held up the yellow recipe card. Do you know what this is? Julian's eyes flickered. Trash, Miss Rossi. It's just trash. This trash, Isabella said, stepping right up to him, is the original recipe for the sunrise soufflé. This trash is the only thing I have left of my mentor. And the man you pushed, the man you threw into the street like garbage, his name is Marcus Thorne. He owns this building. He gave me this restaurant. You didn't just handle a vagrant, Julian. You assaulted the founder of Le Ciel. Julian's face went white. I mean, sheet white. He looked like he was going to be sick. I didn't know, he stammered. He looked what? Isabella roared. The entire staff had stopped, watching. He looked homeless? He looked poor? He looked black? Which one was it that gave you the right to put your hands on him? You are the manager of a house of hospitality, and you showed none. You don't just work for me, Julian. You work for him, the man whose legacy you just spat on. Julian was shaking. Miss Rossi, please, what can I do? You can find him, she said, her voice dropping to an icy whisper. You, and me, and Sarah. We are going to find him. Now, get your coat. And Julian, pray. Pray we find him, because if we don't, you are finished. Not just here. I will personally call every restaurant in this city and make sure you never serve a glass of water again. This was it. The hunt was on. But how do you find one invisible man in a city of millions? A man who had been lost for 10 years. We ran out into the cold. Isabella was frantic, calling his name. Marcus! Marcus! But the street was just a street, full of people rushing to work. No one looking like the man we needed to find. Where would he go? Isabella said, pacing the sidewalk. He has no one. He has nowhere. He was bleeding, I said quietly. His hands were cut when he fell. A hospital? Julien suggested, pulling out his phone. A clinic? He wouldn't, Isabella said, shaking her head. He hates doctors. After the accident, he wouldn't even. She choked on the words. He'd go somewhere familiar. The restaurant. He came here, I said. He was looking at it. He looked like he knew it. Of course he knew it, Isabella said. He designed the bar. He chose the art. She looked around, desperate. Where? Marcus? Where did you go? Julien was on the phone, calling the police, trying to get security footage from the street cameras. He was in full damage control mode. But it wasn't about saving his job anymore, not really. You could see the terror in his eyes. He had just committed the worst sin in the service industry. He had insulted the host. Have you ever tried to find someone who doesn't want to be found? It's impossible. We spent the whole day searching. We drove, we walked, we checked under bridges, we visited shelters. At every shelter, we showed them a photo of Marcus that Isabella had on her phone, a picture from 11 years ago, of him smiling in a chef's coat. No one recognized him. The day wore on, and the hope started to fade. Isabella was quiet in the back of her own car, twisting her pearls. Julien was driving, his face pale and sweaty. I was in the passenger seat, navigating, calling. This is useless. Isabella finally whispered from the back. He's gone. Again. He came here. He must have come to see if I'd done it right. He came to see his legacy. And we threw him out. We will find him, Miss Rossi, Julien said, his voice cracking. I will spend every dollar I have. I will hire private investigators. Isabella just laughed, a bitter, sad sound. You think money can find a man who gave up money? You don't get it, do you, Julien? He's not lost. He's hiding from a world that took everything from him. The world that we are now a part of. We were all silent. She was right. What were we going to do? Drag him back? Force him to be the rich chef he used to be? Why did he tap the ring? I asked, turning around to look at her. He tapped his wedding ring on the glass. Every night. Isabella's eyes widened. His ring. He's still wearing it. She looked at me. He was saying hello. Not to us, to her. His wife. Her name was Liane. She loved this place. She picked the name. Le Ciel, she said. She said it was their sky. She said it was their sky. Where did they meet? I asked. An old place, Isabella mused. His first restaurant, a little bistro across town. Le Coq d'Or. It's been shut down for, 15 years. It's just a derelict building now. Graffiti, broken windows. No one goes there. He would, I said. If he was saying hello to her, he'd go to their place. Julien didn't wait. He put the car in gear, and we sped across town, to the old district, the one that hadn't been fixed up yet. And there it was. Le Coq d'Or. The sign was hanging by one hinge. The windows were boarded up. It looked haunted. He can't be in there, Julien said, parking. He is, Isabella said. She was out of the car before it even stopped. She ran to the boarded-up door and pushed. It was loose. She slipped inside the dark building. Marcus? She called, her voice echoing in the dusty space. Marcus! It's me! It's Bella! Julien and I ran in after her. It was freezing inside, even colder than the street. The floor was covered in trash and old leaves. And then, in the back, in the old kitchen, we saw it. A small fire, built in a rusty trash can and sitting on an overturned bucket, his bleeding hands held out to the weak flames, was Marcus. He looked up as we entered. His eyes were calm. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't scared. He just watched us. Hello, Bella, he said. His voice was sandpaper. Isabella collapsed. She fell to her knees in the dirt. Marcus. Oh my God, Marcus. She crawled over to him, not caring about her expensive coat, and she did something I'll never forget. She grabbed his scraped, dirty hands, and she kissed them. "I'm so sorry," she wept. "I'm so sorry." Marcus just looked at her, a small, sad smile on his face. You kept the soufflé on the menu. That's good." I never changed it, Marcus. Not one ingredient. It's just how you taught me." "I know," he said. "I can smell it from the street. Sometimes. You're using the good butter." This was the moment. The air was thick with 10 years of pain. And then Julien stepped forward. He was trembling, holding his $500 hat in his hands. "Sir," he said, his voice choked. "Mr. Thorne, sir." Marcus looked at him. His eyes weren't angry. They were just empty. "Sir, I am the man who removed you last night. My name is Julien, and I am begging for your forgiveness." Julien got on his knees, right there on the filthy floor, in his $3,000 suit. He was crying, fat, ugly tears. "I didn't know who you were," he sobbed. "I swear to God, if I had known who you were, I would have carried you in. I would have given you the best table." Marcus watched him. He just watched him cry. It felt like an hour. Finally, Marcus spoke. His voice was quiet, but it cut through Julien's sobs like a knife. "You are right," Marcus said. "You didn't know who I was." "No, sir, I didn't," Julien said, looking up, hopeful. "That is the problem," Marcus continued. "You think you are apologizing because you disrespected me, Marcus Thorne, the founder. But you are wrong. Your mistake was not in who you threw out. It was in the act of throwing out." Julien's face fell. I don't understand." "You threw out a man," Marcus said, his voice gaining strength. "You threw out a cold, hungry human being. You put your hands on him and you pushed him into the street. You did this because he was no one. You are not begging for forgiveness for your cruelty. You are begging because your cruelty had consequences for you. You are not sorry for what you did. You are sorry you got caught." It was the most devastating takedown I have ever heard. Julien had no answer. He just knelt there, his face buried in his hands. "A restaurant," Marcus said, looking around the ruined kitchen, "is not about the food. It's not about the wine. It's a sanctuary. It's a ciel, a sky, a place of refuge. The first rule of hospitality is to welcome. And you showed none. It did not matter if I was a king or a beggar. You failed the house. You failed the job." Julien just sobbed. Isabella finally stood up. She looked at Julien on the floor. Her face was hard. "He's right, Julien," she said. "The core of this business is kindness, and you don't have it. Clean out your desk. You're fired." "Please," Julien begged. "Miss Rossi, please, one more chance." "I am giving you a chance," Isabella said. "A chance to go find a new career, one that doesn't involve human beings." She turned her back on him. That was it. Julien, the man who thought he was king of the castle, was left kneeling in the dirt, fired by the woman he respected, in front of the man he had abused. He eventually stood, wiped his face, and walked out of the ruined building. We heard his car start, and then he was gone. It was just the three of us. Marcus looked at his small fire. "You shouldn't have fired him on my account, Bella." "I didn't," she said, sitting on the bucket next to him. "I fired him on my account. I won't have that kind of poison in my house." They sat in silence for a long time. It's beautiful, Marcus. The restaurant. It's everything we dreamed of." "I saw," he said. "You kept the windows clean. I always told you. You can't see the sky through dirty windows." "Why didn't you come in?" she whispered. Why 10 years? "I wasn't." "Me," he said, looking at his scraped hands. "The me you knew, the chef. He died with Leanne and my girl. This is just what's left." "What's left is the man who taught me everything," she said fiercely. "What's left is the man who built an empire and was humble enough to walk away from it. What's left is my family." She reached into her pocket. "You dropped this." She handed him the yellow recipe card. He took it, his fingers tracing the M. I thought I lost this." "It's time to come home, Marcus," she said. "Not to the restaurant, not to this. Just home. My house is big. It's empty. Please." He looked at her, and then at me. I was just standing in the shadows, crying quietly. He looked back at Isabella. I don't know how to be that man anymore, Bella. You don't have to be, she said, standing up and holding out her hand. You just have to be, Marcus. Come on, I'll make you that soufflé. He looked at her outstretched hand. He looked at his fire. And then, slowly, he put his hand in hers. He stood up. Okay, he whispered. Okay. It's been 6 months since that day. I'm not a waitress anymore. Miss Rossi. Isabella. She made me the new general manager of Le Ciel. I was terrified, but she said, Sarah, you've already passed the only test that matters. You see people. Julianne? I heard he's selling insurance in another state. I don't know if he learned anything, but the restaurant changed. Marcus lives with Isabella. He doesn't cook on the line. He says his hands are too slow now, but he has a small test kitchen on the top floor, and he sits with the new, young chefs. He teaches them, not just how to cook, but why. He talks about hospitality. He talks about kindness. And the restaurant? We have a new policy. It was his idea. Every Tuesday, the night Julien threw him out, Le Ciel is closed to the public. We open our doors, and we serve a full, 3-course Michelin star meal to every person at the local homeless shelter. For free. Marcus stands at the door. He doesn't wear a suit. He wears his old, clean, green army coat, and he greets every single person who walks in. He pulls out their chairs. He pours their water. He treats them, in his words, like kings and queens. The story of what happened. It teaches you that you never know who you're talking to. That homeless man might be the secret owner, but the real lesson, the one Marcus teaches every Tuesday, is that it shouldn't matter. Kindness is the only currency that never, ever loses its value. What do you think? Drop a comment below about a time you saw someone completely misjudge another person. It happens every day. And if you believe that everyone deserves a seat at the table, make sure to subscribe. We've got more stories to tell.